Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. This is episode 59, and my name is Erik Roth. And today we're going to be going over the astrology of September 2024. And this is going to be coming from a shamanic, alchemical perspective of astrology itself. So we're going to be looking at the major things that are going on in the month of September. And I will be mentioning other things that aren't as big in the arena as well. It doesn't mean that necessarily that the ones that I mentioned that are not major, that are there somehow just to be kind of dismissed and swept away, but just more of like how much time do we have to explore all of the different things that are going on in the month of September. And so I'm picking out like some of the major highlights of the month of September astrologically that are going to be taking place, kind of to plan for, to look out for. And as of this recording, Mercury has already gone station direct, and we've got definitely some other major things taking place here in the astrological world. So let's go on and tackle those. So here are the major highlights. We're going to, of course, go over the new and full moons as I typically do. The occultation, that actually many occultations that are happening in the month of September. The eclipse season begins. Uranus stations retrograde, which will be the last of the major planets to station retrograde in this year. And then Pluto is retrograding back into Capricorn. And then, of course, we've got Saturn and Neptune at opposition with the Sun in the month of September. So let's look at the many things that are happening here. Just kind of an overview. And if you want to freeze this screen, you can go ahead and do that for for later and write down or connect into the different things that are happening here. But the highlighted ones, we've got September 1st, right off the bat, some really big things taking place. Uranus stations retrograde at 2715 Taurus. Pluto retrogrades into the sign of Capricorn, both on the 1st of September. Then the next day, the Virgo new moon takes place. We have Mercury-Uranus square on September 6th, the third of three of those. So the last two that happened in July and August of 2024. And then Saturn Sun opposition on the 7th. And then we have various occultations, beginning with September 5th, the Moon Venus occultation in Libra. We have the star Spica being occulted by the moon in Libra just after the Venus conjunction, one day after that. And then on the 10th, the star Antares is being conjuncted by the moon and occulted by the moon. And then we have Saturn also and Neptune being occulted by the moon. And I'll talk about what that means later. Then this, of course, we have the Neptune Sun opposition on the 20th. On the 22nd, we have the September equinox, the autumnal equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere, where most of the world population lives. And then the Southern Hemisphere will be going into the springtime, where just a fraction of the human population lives. And then towards the end of the month, we have Sun-South Node conjunction, which is the middle of the eclipse season. That's on the 29th. And then we have a Mercury-Sun conjunction on the last day. That is, Mercury and the Sun conjunct several times every year. Some of them where half of them they're in front of between the Sun and the Earth, and the other half are where the Sun is between Mercury and the Earth. So this one that's upcoming at the end of September is on the other side of the Sun. So the Sun is between the Earth and Mercury, which is called the exterior conjunction. In astronomers still call that superior conjunction because it stays on the other side of the Sun and is hidden from Earth for some days and doesn't come out for a while. although I don't look at it as something as one is better than the other. It's more like just a different kind of conjunction. All right, so let's go and highlight the big ones that are happening in the month of September here. First day of September, we are moving into a new month with nearing the change of a season. And in this case, Uranus is going to be stationed retrograde. So this is the last major planet to station retrograde. This will happen on September 1st at 27 degrees, 15 minutes of Taurus. And it'll be the last time that Uranus stations retrograde in the sign of Taurus until it moves into Gemini in 2025, beginning a new 7-year journey through that sign. So Uranus has been in the sign of Taurus since 2018, May 18th to be exact, and will leave Taurus for good on April 25th, 2026. So it's, this is the last time it stations retrograde in Taurus. In 2025 and 2026, it's stations retrograde in Gemini, but transitioning out of Taurus those 2 years. So Uranus is a planet that represents the unexpected, unpredictable, and where we have events of great novelty happen. And in the sign of Taurus, I've done a whole video about Uranus and Taurus and what that represents, along with the Jupiter in Taurus when it was there in 2023. It represents and connects us to what is comfortable in our lives and the disruptions that take place in those comforts, in those pleasures of life. So a relationship to the physical realm, the earth, and kind of feeling secure and stable in that space. But then when Uranus goes through that sign, it tends to be a really powerful disruptor of throwing a lot of unexpected things our way. And so when it moves into Gemini, it's going to be a totally different type of experience with Uranus because it's in a new archetypal sign there. All right, so let's take a look at the Pluto moving back into Capricorn. So this is the last time that Pluto will move into back into Capricorn for well more than 2 centuries. So this small snippet of time is from September 1st through November 19th, so about 2.5 months that it will be back in Capricorn. And Pluto has been in the sign of Capricorn since 2008. And then in 2023, it's began to transition into Aquarius, just like it's doing this year in 2024. And but once we get to November 19th, it'll fully go into Aquarius and stay in Aquarius until 2043. So and that point, it'll start to transition into the sign of Pisces. So Pluto is going to be spending about 20 years in the sign of Aquarius. So this period of time between September 1st and November 19th brings us back into focus with the areas of life that Capricorn governs, middle world structures and systems, seeing the long-term future, building a strong, persevering operating manual, rules and laws, history, and maintenance of resources. So Pluto isn't necessarily one that tends to maintain things, but Capricorn is. So Pluto is saying, okay, well, what is the shadow and fear of all of this? Something that has been routinely coming up in recent years, economically, health-wise, education, social fears, especially in 2020 when Pluto was still in Capricorn and when it conjuncted Jupiter and Saturn during that time. So we saw a lot of that major disruption and Pluto's impact in that year. So questions we can ask ourselves: how can we help continue the transformation of our collective systems and structures? And how do we want to rebirth the laws, rules, and what we seed into the long term? So Pluto is an underworld planet, shamanically speaking. It helps transform society particularly the deeper level. This it's not a rational process. It's not something we can think our way through, but it is something that we have to feel our way through and still navigate through that as well. So it's more about our feelings and our soul's evolution is a lot of what Pluto imparts upon us. Um, it's not the only planet that represents and connects us to, quote, I say the sort of the organic matter of our lives, and our process of transformation, but it plays a pretty strong role in all of that. All right, so the new moon takes place the next day, September 2nd, at 6:56 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So that's 9:56 Eastern Daylight Time in the sign of Virgo. So when the sun is in Virgo, the new moon's always in the same sign. So when the sun is any new moon, the sun and moon are obviously in the same sign as they always are. So now Virgo, the sign of Virgo, is not in the constellation of Virgo. It's actually, or the priestess, it's mainly in the constellation of the Lion. So if we're looking at where the sun is on that day, it's in the constellation of the Lion. So the Sabian symbol for this, and something I go over quite a lot when I look at certain degrees of new moons, full moons, and other points, I look at the Sabian symbol. So this is looking from the Sabian Oracle by Linda Hill. I use that regularly, and she was definitely inspired by Dane Rudyard's astrologer Dane Rudyard's work in the Sabian symbols, and prior. He was inspired by others as well. So the keywords include secret motives being revealed, unveiling or changing the identity, proving oneself with no excuses and no pretense, breaking down walls, relating on a deep level, honeymoon periods, being true to oneself and others, marriage rituals, dropping pretense, the veil between consciousness and unconscious, or conscious and unconscious. So this is, the symbol of that is the main symbol is the bride with her veil snatched away. So there's a sense of like the truth being revealed, the rawness of who we are and what we're about being shown, and being able to stand in that space and stand strong, but also being true to ourselves and others around us. There's also this symbolism of rituals, of ceremony, and connecting on a deep level about what the big shift is here. So it could be a powerful new moon, I think, in that regard, that it's a time of that we can connect into our deeper truths, and sort of the veil being sort of lifted between the conscious and unconscious there, so that it's not hidden, things are not hidden away there. But it can also represent at times, being the veil being snatched away doesn't mean that it was unexpectedly snatched away, but just simply snatched away. So something wants to come out, wants to be revealed to us, and that can be very helpful for those that follow the moon and want to connect with the lunar energy and their own personal lives and in the collective as well. All right, so occultations. Let's go over the 5 occultations, lunar occultations. So an occultation is when one celestial body overlays or occults another celestial body. If that overlay casts a shadow upon the earth, it's an eclipse. So yeah, that's the difference. One casts a shadow, if you will, and the other, the shadow doesn't ever reach the planet. The word occult comes from the Latin language word occultus, meaning hidden or secret. In the modern use of the word, it relates to paranormal, arcane, or as well as esoteric knowledge. So hidden knowledge that's been hidden from view, that is generally not common. You can find it on a lot of different sort of circles, and the people who practice magic and astrology and other kinds of arts out there that aren't necessarily, quote, scientific. or at least in the modern sense of the word scientific. Astrologically, an occultation is like an exclamation point to the conjunction. The covering up of a planet or star in question places it into a kind of a mini death rebirth of the symbolism astrology associated with that planet or star. So the 5 occultations to review, the first one is September 5th, a Moon Venus occultation. And by the way, none of them are really that visible to people on the planet. A lot of them happen during the daytime. And I think there's one that might be visible a little bit in South America. But even then, it's not something that can be readily seen because, in particularly in the case of Neptune, it's not that visible. So visible, Neptune is not visible to the naked eye. But it's something that we can connect with, and where those conjunctions with the moon can be really powerful exclamation points in that energy there. So we have September 5th and 6th, Moon and Venus, and then the moon conjuncting the star Spica, which is a really powerful star that represents sort of the priestess of the earth energy, the harvest of the earth's bounty, and that something very sacred being drawn in right there. And then on the 10th, the moon conjuncts the star Antares. This is a star that's the heart of the Scorpion, that represents sort of helps us with detoxification, purging of toxins, and kind of a reclamation of our own personal power too. September 17th, Moon and Saturn conjunct, and that happens. Each of these happen every month, but not every month they're going to be an occultation. So these are ones when it comes to the planets, Saturn and Neptune, back-to-back days, the 17th and 18th of September, are just emphasizing the qualities of that planet and sign. So we see Pisces strongly emphasized here in those two, Saturn and Neptune, in its connection to, the celestial realm, the connection to healing, and in Saturn's case, the practical application of that, maybe with plant medicines, with energy healing work like breath work or Reiki. It's also an emphasis on the practical use of empathy and compassion. And in Neptune's case, it's more like the antithesis of that practicality. It's more of the dissolution, the dissolving of things, where the boundaries between the reality, a third dimensional reality, and our, the celestial realm is sort of shifting away. And it gives us a chance to connect into that more of that spiritual realm. And the fact that they happen the day one after the other is also giving us insight in the alchemy that's happening between Saturn and Neptune. Back in June and July, Saturn got to about 10.5 degrees or so of Neptune of 2024. And then next year, June and July 2025, they will actually get within about 1/5 of a degree, 1/6 of a degree within each other in conjunction. They don't actually physically conjunct, but shamanically speaking, they're conjunct. It's even though, again, numerically it's not quite there. They don't actually physically conjunct from as seen from Earth until February of 2026. But we're in 2024, sort of like the run up to that 2025, 2026 period of Saturn and Neptune coming together in the sign of Pisces, late Pisces degrees, and into early degrees of Aries. So something for an entirely different video, but these occultations might give us a little bit of clues as to how that sort of future may show up in our lives. Okay, so now we move to September 6th. This is Mercury will square Uranus. This is the third time since July of 2024 that Mercury and Uranus will square each other. And this is because Mercury went through a retrograde period here in August of 2024. And so in the sign of Virgo and Leo. And so this next one that is coming up is at 2714 Leo, where Taurus is at, Uranus is at 2714 Taurus. So the last two that took place were on July 21st and August 18th. So Mercury Uranus squares can foster significant breakthroughs in mind, communication, perceptions in the world. It can also create even more challenges in technological communications, as well as sudden shifts in the direction of how one perceives where they stand, perhaps changing their mind unexpectedly. They can also be powerful disruptors, potent energetically, and in the planning of our goals. So, that day wouldn't necessarily be a good time to make major plans. It's more about being open to other possibilities, be open to change in that time, kind of working with in concert here, this Uranus Mercury square, and just allowing things to be open and move with the flow of the energy during that time. So Mercury will be, on September 5th and September 7th, it'll be pretty close to the square of Uranus. So the window between the 5th and the 7th of September is going to be, the square is going to be strongly in that field, and the squares tend to create a lot of tension as well. Okay, so we move on to the Saturn Sun opposition, and each year Saturn moves about 12 to 13 degrees in the zodiac on average, and this upcoming opposition is going to happen at 16 degrees in 1 minute Pisces. And usually each opposition, if you go year after year, it's close to 2 weeks, like 13, 14 days or so between Saturn Sun oppositions out year after year. So they happen about close to 2 weeks later the following year. So you can see the year before here in 2023, that happened on August 27th at 3 degrees, 50 minutes Pisces. And before that, August 14th at 21:54 Aquarius in 2022. And so in 2025, there's still going to be another Pisces opposition at 28:30 Pisces. But then when we get to 2026, it'll bump into Aries. So this opposition point of a planetary body highlights the planet's astrological qualities in a significant way, while also showing the counterpoint of the sun sign at the time of the opposition. So whenever someone says Saturn opposition, typically they're meaning the sun opposite Saturn, unless they're referring to something in a personal chart. Okay, so the sun-Saturn opposition brings up the common thread of service as a path to the divine. But with Saturn, it is meant to be more constructive, useful, and seeding of the long term. It's an opportune point to discover where we may be of service or help and bringing our heart into the work. This is all about giving through the work, helping and healing and reflecting upon where we've done similar things in the past. So Saturn helps us on a constructive level, helps us be practical and useful in contributing to the communities and the world through giving and bringing our heart into it in a practical way too, while utilizing empathy. So it's not just doing work without, bringing in the feeling function here or the heart. It's actually connecting into a deeper level with the heart space there. So this could also connect into, rules and regulations and laws established as well around this, which, when we're dealing with Pisces doesn't necessarily exist very well in the middle world. It tends to operate much more outside of that, our third dimensional reality as a sign, as an archetypal sign. So, but yet we, as human beings, we have to work with it, especially when we've got it strongly in our lives in the form of our, planets in that sign. So we have to work with it. That's part of the energy that is intended to be worked with in this lifetime. So it's important. I'm going to be talking about the Neptune version here in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the full moon, which is a partial lunar eclipse. So it's really just a small sliver of the moon that is being eclipsed by the shadow of the Earth. So it's not going to be like a big all-encompassing lunar eclipse, but it's still an eclipse and it's still important. This happens at 2540 Pisces on September 17th at 7:34 p.m. Pacific. Actually, that should be Pacific Daylight Time there. Um, but this is the fourth full moon of the season. So the fourth full moon of summer here in the north and winter in the southern hemisphere. And according to various authorities, the third full moon is the blue moon. And the fourth moon is just the fourth full moon. I'm not sure why necessarily it's like that. There is some connection to more religious doctrine around what a blue moon is. And it's also representative of like the rarity of a blue moon. Although one could even say, just on a psychological level, having that fourth full moon of the season, I mean, one could say it's also very, very rare too. So meaning that this is a fourth full moon of the season is definitely rarer than a third one. Anyway, so this symbol for this eclipse and this full moon is this is a really interesting symbol, the Sabian symbol, 26 Pisces. You add one to the number when you're dealing with Sabian symbols. So the symbol itself is a new moon reveals that it's time for people to go ahead with their different projects. So even though it's a full moon, the symbol of it is a new moon. And so, this applies to anything that gets into 26 or 25 to 26 Pisces here, 26 Pisces being the symbol. So the key words include diversifying, applying talents in different direction, people splitting up and splitting off, new opportunities and potentials, the beginning of a new age, letting go of the old and outworn, separations, embracing one's future without the need for others, coming to a fork in the road, divorces, new jobs, directions and destinies, and the dawning of a new era. So this interestingly enough, a full moon tends to be like in general, without the Sabian symbol here or the eclipse, the fullness of what was started at the new moon. So it's like emphasizing that greater light around whatever was started, like bringing things into fruition to its maximum potential. And so having that maximum potential symbolized by a new moon, you might say brings the best of both worlds into that space. So it is sort of like this eclipse being the first of two eclipses in this eclipse season. The second one, I believe it's October 1st or 2nd. So that'll be a whole video I'll do on the eclipses actually a little bit, particularly the October eclipse, which is a annular solar eclipse, and that is visible in the southern hemisphere, in the Atlantic Ocean, and the South American continent. So, but this can be a powerful eclipse to really start something new. And being the sign of Pisces, this could really help, bring up in the heart space more about this energy of like working empathy and compassion into something that you want to share with others, maybe start new projects around that. And maybe if you're wanting to start a business or something where you're volunteering or you're doing maybe participating in new spiritual practice for yourself. I mean, these are just one of few of many examples that one could utilize with this. So when you see the full moon on that night, and it's visible and I'll share with you here, here's where it's visible through on the North American, South American continent, through much of Africa, actually all of Africa, Europe, and parts of Western Asia, including Russia and the Middle Eastern region of Asia there, and partly a little bit into Central Asia here. But only 3.5% of the moon is in the Earth's umbra. The Earth's umbra is the thing that is the main shadow of it. The rest of it is then the penumbra. That's like the shadow of the shadow. So it's just faintly darkened. And so, but most people will notice that sliver of a shadow on the moon if they're looking carefully. And it's September 17th here in North America and South America, and it'll be September 18th in Europe and Africa and Asia when that lunar eclipse takes place. And this map comes from timeanddate.com. I think it's a wonderful resource to check out for some celestial events, particularly eclipses and seasonal points, and be able to determine like number of days something happens between dates. So that's always a good, like a quick way of calculating things. So I always recommend that particular site. Okay, so let's look at the Neptune Sun opposition that's coming up here on the September 20th. This happens at 28:30 Pisces and at 5:17 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And Neptune, very, very slow relative to Saturn. It only moves about 2.25 degrees or so per year on average. So you can see here this year at 28:30 Pisces, this will be the last time that Neptune has its opposition with the sun in the sign of Pisces. The next year, it starts that process in the sign of Aries, and we'll do that for 12 or 13 more years after that. But you can see all the recent years going back to at least 2018. I think goes back to 2011, if I'm not mistaken, that all the oppositions were in the sign of Pisces because Neptune was in the sign of, began to go into the sign of Pisces in 2011 and then stayed in there until it almost reached the sign of Aries this year, but will fully move into Aries more so in 2025, and not retrograde back into Pisces until, well, it will do that a little bit in 2025, but it will fully go into the sign of Aries in 2026 and after, which is a whole another thing to talk about down the road, that and Saturn's transition to Aries as well. So the Sun-Neptune opposition brings up the common thread of service as well, just like Saturn Sun opposition does too. But with Neptune, it's meant to be more dissolving, celestial, mystical, and somewhat illusory, meaning that there could be some things that aren't quite real about it. It is an opportune point to open up other pathways along our shamanic journey and not to be attached to any one path or goal. Expectations are especially susceptible to being dissolved while the heart yearns to go beyond the boundaries of the mind. And so it wants to expand. The mind and body want to merge with the cosmos, with the universe, with the spirit. Meanwhile, sometimes the ego can get trapped into the limits of itself. And so this is a good time for more mystical experiences, doing some ritual or ceremony around this, where Neptune is really strongly emphasized in the sign of Pisces here. Okay, then we move on the 22nd. We have September equinox. This is the time where there is essentially the symbolic equal day and equal night. But due to the topography and the different latitudes of the Earth, it's never perfectly equal on the day of the equinox. It can take at times several days, either before or after, depending on where on the planet, to be that equal day and equal night. But this is generally within the 97, 98, 99 percentile of equal day, equal night there. Then it almost always happens on September 22nd or the 23rd. So autumn will be in the northern hemisphere and spring in the southern hemisphere. So this goes into the sign of Libra, and the season of relationships is the emphasis. It's a symbol of being more conscious in any given relationship. It is important to have greater awareness of our communications with others and in understanding the needs of others. So here is the sort of the reminder of how the Earth does what it does. It's tilted 23.5 degrees as it orbits the sun. So you can see here autumn right here where it's starting to move. The sun is moving below the equatorial region, the projected equatorial region of the Earth from north to south. So that means we're getting less light, technically speaking, after September 22nd. In this case, that equinox takes place at 5:44 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So that entire day of most of the day of the 22nd is the actual equinox itself. So the light wanes and the night grows. And in the southern hemisphere, it's the opposite, where the light grows and the night wanes. And so this is that space where we gather together and in connection with others, being circles and community and families. There's a certain sense of also part of the harvest, the last of the harvest, and bringing people together to bring the fruits of our labor to the market, and to have connection and bartering and sharing and so forth and so on for the season of Libra. And so that's the main things that are happening in the month of September. I mentioned the September 30th, there's the Mercury Sun conjunction. It's where the Mercury is on the other side of the sun as it's direct and from Earth. And so it tends to be in the hidden and the underworld for, I think it's well over a week. I think it's about a 10-day period where it's not visible to the naked eye. Well, Mercury moves pretty quickly, so it doesn't stay there all that long. Like, for example, Mars or even Venus at times can be, a little bit more, and hidden in the glare of the sun. So that's what I have for today in this video, an overview of the month of September. And again, you can review back to the beginning of this video to look at the other dates of big other things that are happening astrologically in September. I will be making an eclipse video here in the not too distant future, and look at some other options for other videos in the coming weeks and months. So thank you all for being a part of this, and please like and subscribe and share if that works for you. And check out my other videos that are on this channel from past events. And I'm also doing a series of other videos that are about the planets. I did one recently about Mercury and its patterns and motions. I am a shamanic and alchemical astrologer. I do personal astrology readings, mentoring, classes, and events, as well as astrocartography. So you can find me at inspiralnexus.com and email me at inspiralnexus@gmail.com. And my other website that I co-facilitate with Kaylin Castell at mystaralchemy.com, where we tackle the symbolism of the stars and the patterns and its amazing qualities that we each can have in connection with and operating as above, so below, as within, so without, with the individual stars and the groups of stars out there in the sky. So thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everyone.